Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the Foxeer Nano vTx. Yeah, oh, it's super small, I can barely hold on to it. Let's see if I can get a nice close-up shot here. Alright, I'll try to hold it steady so you can see all the little components that you might want to see. Carefully try to turn. So this is a smart audio capable running the Tramp protocol, and it is super small, and for a micro person, this is something I like to look at. It's also important to compare the size, especially if you're a micro guy. So from left to right, we have the Foxeer Nano, then we have the Rush Tiny Tank, and then we have the Nano vTx. The goes up to 400 milliwatts, and you may have seen my video on that. There's actually a V2 out that has a microphone. The microphone on it still, it's not very good, so it's not really of use specifically for micros because our motors just natively sound like high-speed motors, like a drill, a dentist or something, So most of the time in micros, microphones aren't all that useful unless they have some sort of audio filtering going on to kind of decrease that shrilly sound of the motors. As you can see there, they're very similar in size. Let me get my scale out. So first up, we have the Foxeer Nano without an antenna. They're all weighed without antenna. Comes in at just under a gram on my scale. The Rush Tiny Tank comes in just under 1.5 grams. And the Nano vTx comes in at just about, it's a flat gram. So I'm getting a little over 12 millimeters wide on the Foxeer and nearly 16 millimeters long. The Rush Tiny Tank is also just a touch over 12 millimeters and just under 17 millimeters long. And the is just about 14 millimeters wide and a touch over 15 millimeters long. It is worth noting that the Foxeer vTx only comes with wires. It does not come with an antenna, whereas the other two do come with wires. Selling price of this is a little over $24. If you're shopping on Banggood, then you'll find it over $30 for some reason. So if you need to buy from Banggood, I would pop down to that AliExpress where the price comes back down to right around $26, $27 for the Foxeer. I mentioned that right away because my result's kind of surprising. I went ahead and put it in this little guy. It's a little 2S quad. I think the frame is the Apex Racing frame from Pyrodrone. Maybe you can find it elsewhere as well. You can see I've got the Foxeer Nano mounted right down there. And then on around the other side, I have my EP2 from Happy Model for ExpressLRS. And, well, let's get into the footage and we'll talk about it more. Okay, so we're going to arm the motors and we're going to take off. You know, I talk about this pretty consistently. I think I talked about it in the last video. Video reception is going to vary. So this hopefully gives you some basis of measurement for the size, the weight, and the video reception. I am running ExpressLRS on my jumper, so I have matched Happy Model hardware for ExpressLRS. Not that that matters. As long as you have the same frequency, you can have any manufacturer TX model and any manufacturer ExpressLRS receiver. They'll just work together. And as you can see, we've gone down to the end of the block. And one of the things that stood out for me, well, the two things, one you might see as a con, is that the clarity of the signal isn't always the best. We have segments of it here, and I'm curious about maybe my location of mounting it and that playing any sort of role in that. But we hold on to the signal really, really well. You're going to see here in a little bit how I circle all my neighbors' houses. And yes, all my neighbors know I fly, and we're on a text group. And so whenever I do this sort of thing, I hit the text group a good hour before I have any plans on doing this sort of thing and saying, hey, I'm going to do some testing. Do you have anything going on I need to be aware of, or should I just wait for another day? There's one instance where somebody said, oh yeah, we're getting ready to leave, no problem. And I was like, well, getting ready to leave. I better wait for you to leave. Don't want to be out as you're preparing to leave. So, good neighbors, we communicate. We're all, part of a small little community here down in the cul-de-sac. Actually, we did a pest control, a kind of a group buy recently. We have those, what are they called? They're like these little green army worms, but they look like caterpillars. And if you step on them, they make green spots all over the sidewalk and they kill the grass really bad. And we noticed out towards the main road that some of our friends out there were really having a hard time with those. and killing their grass and their flowers and everything. So I think there was about 8 of us down here on this side of the neighborhood that we got together 2 weeks ago thereabouts, and via the text group, and then we had some smaller conversations within the neighborhood, and decided to do a group buy with a person that does pest control, and they actually grew up in the neighborhood, so that's kind of a bonus. We've circled back down around and gone clear down the block. Now, you might want to count the houses on the right-hand side. We have some pretty decent spacing between the houses. I couldn't even estimate. There are maybe 30 yards between some houses, and then with like our house and the house next to it, it's probably only about 15 to 20 yards. We used to live in a much older neighborhood before we moved into this neighborhood. It was built in the 30s, and the distance between the houses in that neighborhood was basically the width of your driveway. It was, pretty narrow. But again, I thought the results were impressive. You can see how we get entire houses, greenery, and we still are able to not only hold on to the signal, but we're able to fly through it, and we don't have a whole lot of static or breakup. It's kind of consistent as far as the static and breakup. There are moments where it gets a little bit worse, but for the most part, as I'm doing all this stuff behind houses, behind trees, go down below grade, down here by the creek, that's actually below ground level from where I'm sitting, and obviously it's not within clear line of sight, so we have a lot of obstructions. I was pretty impressed with this. So I think if you're looking at a micro VTX, hopefully I've given you enough data within this flight to where you can decide whether it's for you or not. And behind the house, it actually did the worst. And that's probably because we do have a brick-faced house. I'm guessing, because I find that most of the time, that behind the house, when I'm sitting in front, it just does worse. It actually does better if I'm sitting in the back of the house and I fly to the front of the house. But I don't do that very often. So it's not something you've seen on the channel too much, unless when I'm testing something like a VTX. By the way, the quad, if you're wondering, it is a 2S quad. I'm running the Beta FPV 20 amp board. I can't remember which version of it is. It's actually, got to be a year plus old. And then I've got the Happy Model 1103 7000 kV motors, and I've got some HQ tri-bladed props that are relatively low pitch props. And it's a really efficient setup. It's a great little cruiser. Oh, I should mention the FPV camera is the Caddx Ant Lite, as well as the canopy is from Newbie Drone. It's the B-Brain. Yeah, it's the B-Brain. And you can see where I have some sync lock issues with my rapid fire module. So that's the most dramatic thing. And that, if you're not familiar with that, that actually doesn't come from the VTX. That comes from the camera. And it's something that we still see from time to time with certain cameras, and that sync pulse of the rapid fire being able to blend those. I am flying in rapid fire mode 1, if that's also something that you're of interest. As we go to the back of the house, there's a point in this flight where I'm going to get closer to the house to see how that impacts the video reception. This is my house, by the way, if you're not familiar. I sit underneath the pergola and do most of my flying right back here. Very comfortable spot. Pop out back, and I can get, in 20 minutes, if I got 20 minutes, I could probably get 6 flights off, 6 recorded flights. I have my little audio recording that I do as well. In this case, obviously, you're not hearing the audio recording because it's not part of this test. But I was talking about the quad and the efficiency. This flight goes on for over 9 minutes, and I'm flying on a 2S G&B 530 milliamp battery. I do discharge the battery a little bit lower than I should have. The verdict's still out on these new line of G&B batteries. I've been flying them on various quads, trying to get my hands on a feel. And, a battery could perform very well in this circumstance, but when I hit it harder and try to be more aggressive, it might not perform well at all. So I'm not necessarily endorsing this new line of battery, although G&B has been one of our major manufacturers of batteries and been one of the primary batteries that I run here on the channel. But I like to give things their due instead of trying to jump to some conclusion that a battery is pretty decent or not. So I don't think we need to see the whole flight. I think I've gone up and down the neighborhood a few times. I've gone around all the houses. I've gone around my own house. Yeah, let me know what you think about this. The video reception, the clarity of the signal, as I started the video with, or this flight with, isn't outstanding, but it holds on to it. It's consistent. It doesn't get very bad. even when we get to the part where I'm thinking, you know, this is kind of my limits. Of course, if you're flying a wing or something that's high up in the air and you have far fewer obstructions between you and it, it's going to have a much better and clearer signal. But I do wonder how much having, you know, in micros, we tend to have all these electronics very compact. And because ExpressLRS is relatively new, I'm wondering if that EP2 receiver isn't possibly emitting a little bit of noise, creating a less than perfect signal clarity in some of these flying situations. But I can't say that that's the problem. Maybe it's the board emitting something, causing some sort of issue. The board's been around a while. It's been crashed plenty. So it could be the board as well. If you do want to see more about this quad that I'm flying, let me know down in the comment section. You know, give the video a thumbs up, leave a comment saying, hey, I'd like to see that quad fly more aggressively. I can certainly do that. I don't think I've done it on the channel. This is just one of those kind of randomly built, you know, had some parts, had some time, put together a quad. I don't know if the Apex racing frame is being sold. I bought mine from Pyrodrone. I think I bought 3 or 4 of them. But if you want to see it, I can give it its you know, how I fly in the backyard, and you can get a better idea for its performance. It comes in, I think it's about 41.5 grams. I think is its dry weight. Something else that you might want to know about the quad. But as far as this Reaper Nano, pretty good VTX. $24, depending upon where you buy from. Maybe you have to spend a little bit more, but I'll have links down in the video description if you want to go check it out. Possibly there's some information on the web pages that I didn't include here in the video. I like to fly things, and I like to go out and just experience them rather than regurgitate a bunch of stuff from the web page, even though I do go through the specs on everything here on the channel. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time. And thanks for watching.